Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Capnclydes MTG. We are back, and it's time for the daily wrap up of Ixalan reveals. Dun dun dun. Leaks, spoilers, call them what you will. So, before we get started in that, though, we got plenty to go over. Don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding. And the best way to support the channel for free is to subscribe here or give me a like over on Rumble. Also, we have the eBay TCG store is listed in the description along with Patreon and the email if you want to reach out and say, hey. So, without further ado, let's get into it because, yeah, spoiler season. So, we're going to start off with, we got Thrashing Bronodon reprint from Ixalan. It was in the previous set, so why not? 2 green and 1 for the 3/4 comes in. For 1, you can sacrifice it, store an artifact or an enchantment. We got All Tech Cloud Guard, white and 3 for a 3/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 Colorless Gnome artifact creature token. Very interesting. A 4 mana 3/2 flyer is already good enough, but also getting a 1/1 on the ground, sweet. And then we have this bad boy, Poison Dart Frog. Can you say the best mana dork ever? Yes, it's a green and 1. I get that. But it's a 1/1. It has reach. It can block anything except something with menace or some silly crap. Taps for mana of any color. And for 2 colorless, you can give it Death Touch to kill whatever it blocks. This is the epitome of mana dork. We have reached the apex. I mean, at this point, we're going to start putting extra keywords on these things. This is definitely going to be an all-star in one of my picks, unless I see something else, because, God, this looks good. Anyway, Bringer of the Last Gift. 2 black and 6 for this 6/6 flyer. Looks like a demon. Vampire demon, that is. When Bringer of the Last Gift enters the battlefield, if you cast it, each player sacrifices all other creatures they control. Then each player returns all creature cards from their graveyards that weren't put there this way, that was not put there this way, to the battlefield. So it's a 6/6 flyer that living deaths. Very interesting. If you cast it for 8 mana. Probably not the best thing in the world, but pretty cool for Commander. Just saying. So moving on, next we have Bonehorde Dracosaur, other words, dragon dinosaur. 2 red and 3 for a 5/5 flying first strike. Wow. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exile a land this way, you get to create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exile a non-land this way, create a treasure token. Man, so not only do you get to play them, but you get something when you exile them. So if you don't play them, you still get something. This is insanely good. It's going to be in red decks because it's going to give you treasures. It's going to give you extra creatures. And if it's late game and you've somehow mana flooded or whatever, this thing's going to do all the above. It'll slice, it'll dice, it'll make julienne fries. So this thing's going to be a bomb in Commander and many other things. Waterwind Scout. So blue and 2 for this 2/2 flyer. Good rate. When it enters the battlefield, you create a map token, which is an artifact that says, for 1 colorless tap, sack this artifact. Target creature you control explores, activate only as a sorcery. Okay. That's interesting. Pseudo draw, because it could get you a land or it could not. But still great for a common. Miner's Guidewing. So 1 white, 1/1 flying vigilance. When it dies, target creature you control explores. Pretty sweet, pretty good. Might be pretty good in Pauper, to be honest. Next we have Song of Stupefaction, I guess. Blue and 1 for an aura, enchanted creature or vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, you may mill 2 cards. It has Fathomless Descent. Enchanted permanent gets -X, -O, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So basic removal spell for blue. Probably only good for limited. Next we have Didact Echo, I think. Blue and 4 for this 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So 5 mana for a 3/2 draw card, not terrible. Descend 4. It has flying as long as there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. So Descend is apparently a new mechanic. That's going to let you get an ability if you have X in your graveyard. This one is 4, so if you have 4 cards, it gets flying. So pretty good. Brood Rage Mycon. It's a fungus. Anyway, Black and 3 for this 4/3 at the beginning of your end step. If you descended this turn, create a 1/1 black fungus creature token with this creature can't block. It's all right. Next we have a flip card. We have Idol of the Deep King, a red and 2 for an artifact with flash. Okay, very interesting for red. When Idol of the Deep King enters the battlefield, deals 2 damage to a target. Nice. Kind of removal. Then it has craft with artifacts. So what that is you pay, with this one, in example, you pay a red and 2. Then you exile this artifact and another artifact you control, or a card in the graveyard. So it has to be in play or in the graveyard. Then you return this card transformed, only as a sorcery. And you come back with Sovereign's... I don't even know how to pronounce that. But when it enters the battlefield, you attach the creature control. The creature gets +2/+0 equipment. Not too shabby for a common. Moving on, next we have Throne of the Grim Captain. 2 colorless legendary artifact that says tap, mill 2 cards. Craft with a dinosaur, a merfolk, a pirate, or a vampire for 4, which flips it into a 7/7 menace, trample, lifelink, hexproof. Okay. So you have to exile one of each of these, apparently. A dinosaur, a merfolk, a pirate, and a vampire. It says exile this artifact. Exile the 4 from among permanents you control and or in a graveyard. Okay, so you have to exile one of everything to get a 7/7 menace, trampling, life-linking, hexproof. Whenever it attacks, each opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent. Then you may put an exile creature card used to craft the captain onto the battlefield under your control, tap and attacking. Good God. So, I mean, it seems fine, but it's probably not going to do a whole lot just because, well, I mean, you can mill stuff into the graveyard. It might be a thing. We'll have to wait and see. Then we get into the land cycle. We have green as the hidden nursery. Enters the battlefield, taps for green. For green 2, you sacrifice the nursery, discovery 4. What that means is you exile a non-land card, mana value 4 or less. I'm sorry. You exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 4 or less. You cast it without paying its mana cost or put it into your hand. So basically for 5 mana, you get the Cascade for 4. Then we have Hidden Volcano. Comes in taps for red. Does the exact same thing. I see a pattern. 5 mana, Cascade for 4. Does every color get one? By Joe, they do. So 1 for every land. You get the Discovery 4. Not too bad. Chart a Course reprint, which is blue and 1. Draw 2 cards. Then discard a card unless you attacked. Very popular card back in the day. Still will be used. And coming back into Standard, it will be heavily played as a draw spell. Next we have a Treasure Map reprint. In case you didn't know, it comes in for 2. You tap it, scry 1. Put a landmark counter on it. Once you have 3 counters, it becomes this, where it becomes a land. It taps for colorless or taps to sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Plus you get 3 treasures out of it. Gold reliable. Anyway, next we have Bartolomeu de Presidio, whatever that means. I probably butchered that. Black-white for a 2/1. Sacrifice another creature or artifact. Put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Not too terrible. We have Gishoth Sun's Avatar. White, green, red, and 5. For 8 mana, will get you a 7/6 Vigilance, Trample, Haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. Put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield. The rest on the bottom of the random order. I believe this is a reprint. Don't quote me on that. But I remember seeing something this belligerent before. Moving on. Next we have Intrepid Paleontologist. You didn't know I knew that word, did you? Green and 1 for a 2/2. Add 1 mana of any color. For 2, exile target card from a graveyard. This is really good for graveyard hate and things like that, plus a mana dork. It also says you may cast dinosaur creature spells from among cards you own exiled with Intrepid Paleontologist. If you cast a spell this way, that creature enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Moving forward, anything with a finality counter on it, just so you know, when it dies or is destroyed or whatever, is exiled instead of put anywhere else. But this is cool because you could also exile your own stuff to get your dinosaurs back from your graveyard. Next, we have Cosmum Conflux. Cosmum Confluence. Anyway, Green and 4 colorless sorcery. You get to choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. So out of these 3 things, you could choose any of them up to 3 times. Search your library for a cave card. Put it on the battlefield, tap, and shuffle, or put 3+1/+1 counters on a cave card on a cave you control. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste, still land, or destroy an enchantment. This seems like a really good rare for standard with all the possibilities it has. I think it's going to see some play. Next, we have what a cave is. Here's your cave card. Taps for a colorless, comes into play untapped. For 2, it becomes a 3/3 elemental creature at the end of turn. It's still a cave land. Activate only if the number of other caves you control plus the number of a cave cards in your graveyard is 3 or greater. So this will get you all these. And there you go. All right, moving on. Next, we have this flip card, the Spring-Loaded Sawblades. White and 1 for flash. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage, target tapped creature an opponent controls. That's an amazing removal spell for white. Plus, it has craft for a white and 3. It becomes the Blade-Wheel Chariot, which is a 5/5 crew 1 that also says tap 2 other untapped artifacts you control. The Chariot becomes an artifact creature in a turn. So you could crew it for 1 or tap 2 other artifacts. This is amazing because you can play 4 of these and use these to activate this. Seems good. All right, moving on. Next, we have the Sea-Note Scout. 1 green, 1/1, enters the battlefield and explores. Could be a 2/2, could draw a card. This is going to be an amazing card, seeing lots of play. We have another flip card, the Ever-Flowing Well. A blue and 2 for this legendary artifact. When the Ever-Flowing Well enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. Not too bad. Descend 8. So once you have 8 things in your graveyard, at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, you can transform it into a land that says tap for a blue. Whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana by the Myriad Pools, which is this card, up to 1 other target permanent you control becomes a copy of that spell until end of turn. Very interesting. This is going to be a very good card, and it's going to see some play, I believe. All right, moving on. Next, we have Souls of the Lost, black and 1 for a creature spirit that is a star and star +1. As an additional cost of this spell, discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. Fathomless Descent. Souls of the Lost power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that +1. So this is a better Tarmogoyf. Oh my god, we've finally seen it. Because it says number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So now instants and sorceries don't count, but lands, creatures, artifacts, enchantments, auras, all those things count toward this card, and I think it will make this card very playable. Next, we have the Jadelight Spelunker. Anyway, green and X for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, it explores X times. So you can make a 1/1 for 1 if you want. That's cool. Late in the game, let's say you got 5 mana, nothing else to do. You can make a 1/1 that explores 4 times. This is insanely good. This is like a smaller Hydroid Krasis. Like, this, I think, is going to be a powerful card for green to upgrade a lot of decks. Next, we have the Spyglass Siren. 1 blue for a 1/1 flying. When it enters the battlefield, create a map token. We talked about map tokens. Target creature you control can explore. 1/1 flyer for 1's already great. The fact you could make it a 2/2 or maybe just draw a card, even better. Next, we have the Enigma Jewel. 1 blue for legendary artifact. Enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for 2 colorless, spend only to activate abilities. This thing crafts with 4 or more non-lands with activated abilities. Blue and 8. So, for a blue and 8, you exile this artifact, exile 4 or more others from among permanents you control or in your discard. Return this card transformed to the battlefield, which then says it's a Locus of Enlightenment, which has each activated ability type of all the cards used to craft it. You may activate every ability only once. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it. You may choose new targets. There's so much possibility for this. Icron Scepter. Panharmonicon. Like, there's so many things that could be done here. I guess not Panorama because it's not an activated ability, but you get what I'm saying. Mana rocks, draw cards, like so many different things. Artifacts that let you untap other things or itself. Plus, it taps for 2, so instead of 9 mana, you really only need 7 because you could tap this itself. So yeah, I think this is going to be powerful. It's just a question of who and when it gets broken. So next we have Hit the Mother Load. 3 red and 4 sorcery. Discovery 10. If the discovered card's mana value is less than 10, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the difference. So cascade for 10, get treasure to the difference of whatever you don't cascade into. So you could, for 7 mana, get 10 treasure tokens if you don't cast it. Or you could make something and get treasure tokens. I like the latter. This seems to be insanely good and is going to probably see play. Especially since for 7 mana, this is the exact same amount as that one spell that lets you ramp into this. I forget what it's called now. Maybe it won't work. Let's not get on that tangent. I think I might have that wrong. Anyway. Geological Appraiser. 2 red and 2 for a 3/2. Not the best. Enters the battlefield. If you cast it, discover 3. Okay. So 4 mana, Cascade 3. I mean, it's kind of on par, with the Cascade creatures of the type. But it's 4 mana, not 3. I mean, it's basically a Bloodbraid Elf that's not green. Let's just be honest. Yeah, it's just a new Bloodbraid Elf. I mean, honestly, it doesn't have haste, but it's monocolor. Still seems real good. Anyway, the Myco Tyrant, green, black, and 1 for the Elder Fungus. I've had Elder. If you got Elder Fungus, you need to probably see a doctor sooner. Anyway, this legendary creature has trample and it's star. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control that are fungus and or sapperlings. Oh, that's cool. A sapperling matters card. Yes. Time to make the sapperling fungus commander deck. At the beginning of the year in step, create X11 black fungus creature tokens with this creature can block, where X is the number of times you've descended this turn. Interesting. And descending is basically putting something from play. Well, put it in your graveyard. So if you discard 1 card, that's descend 1. If you do it 2, that's 2. This seems pretty powerful for 3 mana and looks to be pretty sweet. Next we have Ukenbinbach. I guess the great mistake. The name is a great mistake, I'll tell you that. Black, blue, and 3 for this 6/4 flying Menache, or Vigilance. Has Descend 8, which is for black, blue, and 4. You can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Activate only if you have 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, only as a sorcery. Pretty cool. You can lay it once for 5, get it back for 6. Playing it twice is cool. Probably going to be good and limited. About it, though. Next we have Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel. Blue, 1 for a flash flying 2/1. Already pretty sweet. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a chorus counter on it, draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 or more chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. Oh, wow. This is going to be a card to be reckoned with in older formats. It's only 2 mana. It's flash, so you can do it at the end of someone's turn. It's a flyer. It has evasion. Casts stuff for free. This may be the total package right here that may see older format play. And in standard, this is going to be a powerhouse. Commander too, but yeah, this is going to be a thing. And then we get a reprint. Growing Rights of Ixalan. That's right. When you're in the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards. You get a creature, put it into your hand. Rest on the bottom random order. But at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, you get to transform it into Ixalan, Cradle of the Sun, or Gaia's Cradle, as some would like to call it. Taps for a green, or taps for 1 green for each creature you control. The Growing Rights of the Cradle. All right, we have Restless Prairie. Enters the battlefield tap. You get a green or a white when you tap it, or it becomes a creature for a white, green, and 2. Becomes a 3/3 green and white llama creature until the end of turn. Still a land. Whenever it attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Good man land. Probably going to see some more of those coming out. Then we have Ogier Tak Deepest Foundation. 2 white and 4 for a 6/6 vigilance. If one more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many of these tokens are created instead. When it dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed under your owner's control. Under its owner's control, which then becomes a land called Temple of Civilization, which taps for a white. Or for a white and 2, you can transform the Temple of Civilization. Activate only if you've attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn, and only as a sorcery, and which flips it back to this monstrosity. So now instead of having god cards that go back to the deck or back to your hand, you can just replay them back on the battlefield under a condition for a cheaper cost. This is going to be an issue, and Commander is going to love this. Token tripling? Oh, hello. Next, Vito's back, the fanatic of Alclazorts. Alclazorts? I don't know. Black, white, and 2 for a 4/4 flying vampire demon again. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you gain 2 life. If it's the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, each opponent loses 2 life. If it's the third time, create a 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. So maybe the top end of Aristocats deck, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see if it's really worth the trouble for this 4-mana 4/4 flyer. Moving on, next we have Abulo Ancestral Echo, white, blue, and 1 for a 2/2 flying ward 2. That for a blue, 1 white, and 1, exile another creature or artifact you control, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next end step. So not only is it hard to kill, it can remove other creatures. So very interesting card. Will play very well with Geist of St. Draft. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a sweet card because it's going to be hard to deal with, and it's going to have to be killed first before you can kill anything else. Finally, we get Quintaris Cand, the Planeswalker Elephant. White, red, and 3. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, deal 2 damage to each opponent, you gain 2 life. Wow, that almost sounds like Liliana, as if he was schooled by her, but bump. Anyway, +1, create a 3/2 red-white spirit creature token, very on par. -3, discover 4. Let's just call it Cascade. Anyway, Cascade 4. -6, exile any number of cards from your graveyard. Add 1 red for each card exiled this way, and you may play those cards this turn. Oh my god. So, -6, exile 20 cards in my graveyard. Get 20 red mana. I can now play all 20 cards in my graveyard, and I also have 20 red mana to help me play them. This seems like a sweet card for Commander. Holy cow. And 5 mana is not that steep, I'm just saying. Alright, moving on. We have Shahili, the Sun's Brilliance. Legendary creature, not Planeswalker. Anyway, red, blue for a 2/2. For a red and blue tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact you control, except it's an artifact. In addition to its other types, it gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So this is going to be a thing, something ugly. Because you can copy artifacts, right? Imagine, if you will. I forget the card's name. I always forget. But it's the 5 mana. Whenever you play a spell, untap all your non-land permanents. Imagine having this in play, and that for a blue and a red, you copy it, so now everything untaps twice. You play a spell. The first one resolves, so you untap everything, tap it down, make another one of those. So now everything untaps 3 times with your next spell. Untap everything, make another one. Now everything untaps 4 times with your next spell. Play 1 spell. Everything untaps 4 times. It's... oh my god. This shenanigans with this card is going to be insane. And it's cheap. This, I think, is going to be I'm gonna say close to $20 once people find out some of the silly shenanigans you can probably do with this thing. Alright, anyway. Moving on. And by moving on, I mean we're finally done. So, Been a bit of a long one, but we got a lot of cards to cover. Lots of fun cards, lots of good cards, some great new mechanics and interactions. It's going to be fun. This round of Ixalan looks a lot better than the last one. But we'll have to wait and see. First Ixalan was not received really well. This one looks like it might be. It's already shaping up to be quite the gameplay experience, I think. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget, till next time, be kind. And as always, I hope to see you across from the game table.